Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Sekani, a podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. Today's guest is Colin Corby, a TEDx speaker, digital well-being coach, technologist, and endurance athlete. He's the creator of the Digital Detox Coach, where he helps individuals and organizations build a healthier, more intentional relationship with technology. With over 30 years inside the tech world and the mindset of someone who has completed multiple Ironman triathlon, Colin brings a rare perspective on how technology is shaping not just how we work, but how we think, feel, and live. This is a conversation about focus, identity, and what it takes to stay human in a hyper digital world. Colin, welcome to Conversations with Sekani. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
All right, so I want us to dive into your 20s a little bit, right? So, in your 20s, what was your relationship with, ambition, work, and success, and how did technology fit into that at that time? Right.
So I was lucky. Like a lot of people, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
So I left school 16, and I was an apprentice in British telecoms. And because I knew I wanted to do something with technology, but I wasn't exactly sure. But actually, I quite enjoyed it, and I did lots of study at college, and I got promoted into management at the age
Hmm.
of 21.
Wow.
And I went to work in British Telecom International just at the time when everything was changing from analog to digital. So
Hmm.
digital cable systems to the US from the UK, digital satellite systems. And it was boom time, loads and loads of new technology. And it was a wonderful experience in my 20s, working on projects that were world firsts. Working on speech coding where you no longer transmit someone's voice anymore. You just transmit a code of their voice and you reconstruct it at the other end. Of course, all of that is normal now, but it was, very new and exciting when I was in my 20s.
Hmm. Wow. Okay. So basically, you've always been a tech guy from your 20s.
Yeah, and really I was quite happy with being in tech because
Hmm.
in a sense I was working for a very good company. I worked with, wonderful colleagues, and this sort of idea of helping the world to communicate was in the back of my mind. So it was a really good and positive thing.
Wow. All right. Wow. Okay. So, yes, you hit a personal tipping point, right, with stress early on. So, what did that season actually teach you about your limits?
Um, well, it was such a wonderful time and wonderful career. I just really forgot about looking after myself. So I was commuting every day into London, and I was working, on these exciting projects. And to be fair, I was playing hard as well. And
Mm.
I was just ignoring what my body might need. And I made the same mistake as, lots of people of imagining that, the brain's a bit like software, the body's a bit like hardware, and, we just go on forever. And then I suffered stress in my mid 30s, but
Mm.
it was at a time when stress wasn't talked about. And what happened to me was that my heart rate started to increase and increase and increase to the point where I saw stars and started to pass out at work.
Mm.
And clearly very serious. And it happened quite often. So I had lots of tests and nothing was found. And I thought, well, okay, what is it that I can do for myself? And I remembered being, as a child, very good at swimming. And so I went swimming and I swam 2 lengths of the swimming pool and I was absolutely wrecked.
Mm.
And I remember at the time thinking, I think I've found the problem. I wasn't overweight. I was just really not very fit.
Mm,
And so I thought, well, okay, I'll do fitness because fitness trains the heart.
mm,
And so I persevered because I had to. I had a mortgage on a house. I had a young family, and I got fitter. And
mm,
the stress started to disappear. I took lessons to learn how to do the swimming strokes
mm,
properly, and then I started racing because actually I'd done so much training that I wasn't a bad swimmer at all. And
mm,
all over the world, there's swimming that you can do called masters swimming, and you can do that over the age of, well, it's over the age of 18 now, but it was over the
mm,
age of 25 when I did it. And there are competitions, and you can be a county champion, a national champion. And it was at that time the triathlon club had just started, and they said, "Would you like to swim in our sessions, but you don't have to do the cycling and running?" So I
mm.
wasn't a good cyclist or runner. So I joined them, but unfortunately they lied. They entered me for some triathlons and I ended up doing triathlon.
Right.
And because I was getting fitter, I'd sort of realized a bit late that the mind and the body are all one thing. You're just one
Mm,
person. You're not separate. The mind isn't separate. It's totally dependent
mm,
on the body. And I thought, well, this is interesting. And then as I got fitter, I
mm,
found that I started to think differently about what I could do, what I could achieve,
mm,
how I stood, how people reacted to me just because I was physically fitter, how much work I could do, my creativity, everything started to increase. So I was fascinated by this mind body thing, and exercise
mm,
became part of my identity. And along the way, I did 4 Ironman triathlons because the swimming's quite easy, but the other
mm.
bits are really hard.
Wow, okay. So yes, thank you for actually taking us back into your 20s, right? And I love that you said the mind and body works hand in hand, right? So
Yes.
yeah, I would love if you, elaborate more on that actually.
So, the way that we feel affects the way that we think. A
Mm,
very simple example would be if you were standing at the bottom of a very steep hill,
mm,
the way that you would think about that hill would depend on where you fit. Are you tired? Are you carrying a heavy backpack? So for me, if there was a really steep hill, I just think, oh yeah, there's a steep hill. It's not a problem.
mm,
So all of a sudden, your reality, the way that you see things, is different. Because I feel that I can do lots of things, then it opens up a whole world of possibilities. So,
mm,
but if I was tired or if I was unfit or injured, then the way that I would look at the world would be in relationship to that feeling. And so
mm,
by being healthy and by recognizing that we're all one person, um, we can then say, well, okay, I need to get more sleep. I need to eat the right food. Obviously, I need to exercise. I need to be with other people and all of those sorts of things because that keeps me healthy. And I know that if my body's healthy, then my mind's going to be healthy and I'll be able to achieve more things. So you have
mm,
that sort of outward looking thing, way that you look at the world. And it's really quite fascinating. And then you start to notice other people when they put limitations on what they can do. Oh, I
mm,
don't think I'd do that particular task or that activity. And they start limiting themselves because, again, their own personal circumstances are shaping what they can do. And I was fascinated by that. It happens on endurance sport because it's really silly. Um, an Ironman triathlon, you swim 2.4 miles, which for me is quite easy.
mm,
But then you cycle 112 miles. And then at the end of that, I like to say you run, walk, or crawl a marathon. And it just opens up the world of possibilities. And the fact that you can do that if you train, And if you're in good health, you can actually do those things. And it just opens up the world for you.
Right. Wow. Okay, yes, thank you so much for that one, actually. And yeah, I want us to touch on technology, psychology, and modern life, right? So you talk about the collision between technology and psychology. So what does that actually look like in everyday life?
So I came about that idea because the iPhone was introduced in 2007, but it wasn't until about 2010 that started spending too long on my laptop and my
Mm,
smartphone and struggling to find time for exercise, which I knew I had to do to keep my body in balance. So I did lots of research about, well, okay, what's going on? Why? Why do I love to be on my laptop? Why do I love to be on my smartphone? And that's when I got interested in behavioral psychology because of the way um, apps on our phones have to be good apps in the first instance, but then they use persuasive techniques to keep us engaged and to keep us hooked. Simple examples are constant scrolling. We constantly scroll because things are happening really quickly. We don't have time to think. Everything in technology is very easy, but everything outside of technology can be much harder. We get lots of lovely little round circles with numbers in to say we have notifications. So we have that whole expectation of rewards that goes with a lot of our technology. And so it draws us in. I always think the modern technology is a bit like a sweet shop. And I like chocolate. And if I'm in a sweet shop, chances are I'm going to buy some chocolate. And when you're into the technology sweet shop or on your smartphone, you're just drawn in to um, check your emails, check your social media feeds, check, your favorite podcasts, your favorite television, all of your apps, and you go round in cycles of checking all of these things because it's very easy and they create habits.
mm,
And I mean, we've been picking up our smartphones and scrolling and swiping for years. So we've got some really ingrained habits of doing
mm,
things. And then I looked at lots of research, and some of the research was really fascinating. It said the mere presence of a smartphone near us has a cognitive pull, which means that even though we might not be thinking about our smartphone, is actually there in the background. And
mm,
so, if we've got nothing to do, or if we're bored, or if we're trying to avoid a particular thinking about thing, we reach for our smartphones as if they're some form of comfort blanket.
mm,
And then we get lots of interruptions, but there's other research that says if we don't get an interruption, because we're so used to being interrupted and looking at our smartphones, we'll be in the middle of a job and we'll interrupt ourselves and go and check. I wonder if someone's put something interesting up. I wonder if there's a great new video or something else. So we're always checking, and it's got that tremendous pull on us. But of course, what we see on our smartphones isn't our own choice. They're fed by algorithms which are trying to predict what we find most engaging. So it could be something shocking. It could be something that we think, no, that's terrible. Because obviously shock and disgust gets a lot of attention. And the reason why they do that, of course, is that their business models are advertising.
mm,
So for example, Google, which is the market leader, what it's interested in is in selling advertising to companies. And it wants to know as much about us as possible so that it can match just the right people for the advertiser. And if it knows exactly where we are, then it's even better. So, for example, if we're walking along the street and the Google knows that there's a restaurant close by, it
mm,
can it can then feed us adverts for restaurants. If it knows that we quite often frequent cafes at a particular time in the afternoon, then it can advertise, local cafes to us. Um, so its business case is to use us not as a product, but as the raw material for the products that it sells to businesses, and it's highly successful at doing it.
Mm. Right. Wow. So, I'm thinking, right? So, do you think we're actually, right? Do you think we're losing something fundamentally human in the way we interact with technology?
Yes. So the TEDx talk that I did with my US colleague Anna Smith was we asked the question, are we losing human identity to technology? And we did it 3 years ago. I think it was yesterday, and it's still as relevant today as it was then.
Mm,
Um, so who we are is shaped by lots of different things. We have our DNA,
mm,
which sets certain parameters. We have the environment that we live in, but we don't come fully programmed. So our experience of the world is through all of our experiences.
mm,
Now, if we're spending a very long time on our smartphones and laptops, then our how we look at the world, what we think about the world, is shaped by the experiences that we're having. So if all of our experiences tend to be online experiences rather than in the real world,
mm,
then they're being shaped. They're being shaped by the commercial interests of those companies. They're being shaped by what the algorithms feed to us. So we're not the same person that we might have been if we'd had different experiences.
mm,
Um, so part of our identity is being shaped by what we see and do online. Um, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Um, a lot of the shaping is being done by US companies. Now,
mm,
if you're in America and that's part of your culture, that's a great thing. But for everyone else in the world, your culture, your values might be slightly different.
mm,
And so you're getting this external shaping going on all the time. So your identity will be different to your parents' identity because their experiences will have been different. And that may be a good thing, or that may be a bad thing. One of the funny parts of it's not really funny, but I'll say it's funny, is that there's so much generated by algorithms and AI
mm,
that a lot of the content now, and it's increasing all the time, is actually not even human content.
mm.
And a lot of the human content, as well as the AI content,
Yeah.
they don't worry about the truth or facts in the same way that you might imagine. They're more interested in the story and
Mm,
how it makes you feel, as opposed to whether it's, entirely accurate. So we're losing our relationship with factual information,
mm,
and that has ramifications as well. But the really important thing, and the reason why I'm a digital detox coach, is we, as biological animals, we have to get a balance between
mm,
what we need as biological animals to live and thrive, and also what we have to do to be in the modern world, which is to be online. So we have to get that balance right of being online to live in the modern world, but also to come out of that world to do the things that we need as human beings. And that's, we need sleep. All
mm.
animals need sleep. Um, if we miss a couple of nights' sleep, we are really bad at
Mm.
functioning.
Right.
We need good nutrition. We need to be with other people. There was a lovely report from the US Surgeon General a couple of years ago, and he said, we're the most connected humans ever.
Mm,
And how come there's a loneliness epidemic? And the simple reason is that communicating online isn't the same thing as communicating with people in the real world, in the
Mm,
physical world. And because we're social animals, we need to be with other people and to feel safe with other people in order to feel safe, but for our stress levels to come down. We need to be in nature
mm,
because that reduces our stress levels. Um, we're amazing creatures, along with many other creatures on the earth. We're able to live in this amazing world that's incredibly complex, and we really don't understand much about it. But we're able to live and survive, and that's an incredible thing. So we shouldn't get fooled by how good our technology is.
right. Wow. Okay, so talking about like digital detox, right? So I want to be sincere. When people hear digital detox, it can feel extreme, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes. But like, can you explain in simple terms, right, what it actually means in like a realistic sense?
So a digital detox is actually your online off switch, and it
Mm,
can be as short as 20 seconds.
mm,
If you've been staring at a screen and you need to rest your eyes, and you just close your eyes or you look to a distant object, it can be as short as 20 seconds. And of course, the extreme version, which is going away for a week in nature and completely switching off, and everything in between. But a digital detox can be very simple. It can be, switching off your smartphone an hour before you go to bed. I
mm,
mean, if you watched a horror movie just before you went to sleep, it might take you a little bit longer to get to sleep.
mm.
So
Right.
if you're overstimulated by what you're looking at on your phone,
Mm,
then it's going to take longer to get to sleep. So just a digital detox can be as simple as just switching off your smartphone an hour before you go to bed and
mm,
reading a book, because that always sends me to sleep.
mm,
Um, during the day, it could be those 10 to 15-minute short breaks. So you've been working away on something or studying on something, and you need a break. And what a lot of people do is they then go and have that break by looking at their smartphones. But
mm,
you shouldn't do that. You should have a complete offline break, and talk to other people, have a rest, um, walk about, move about. We're 30% less active than we
mm,
were in the 1960s. And inactivity, certainly in the UK and other Western countries, results in the same deaths as smoking. About 1 in 6 deaths are caused just because people haven't been moving about enough, because
mm,
we've evolved to move around, and we're not moving around, and that has implications. So
mm,
so there's lots, and sorry, the reason why just looking at a smartphone isn't having a rest is because you're still looking at a screen which is quite close to you. You're still having to um, simulate what's on that screen, make some decisions, react to it. So you're still doing some work.
mm,
And the best thing is to come away from that. There's a lovely example. If you ask people where do they have the most creative ideas, quite often you get the answer in the shower, because it's the only place they haven't got their smartphone.
mm.
Or they might have their smartphone playing music, but they're not actually looking at
Right.
it.
Wow. Okay, wow. So, digital detox is like trying to create a balance between real life and online lifestyle, right? Just try to go offline for a while. I've been around people that I don't think they can do that except they fall asleep, right? Do you think that's dangerous? I mean, I don't think they can go off their phone for uh 1 minute, right? They are so, in fact, they are more in their, they are into the online life than in the physical world, right? They do not connect with people physically, but they are just on their phones and they are more active on their phones. So I can't help but wonder what it feels like for them when you take their phone away from them, right?
Well, yes, going cold turkey is quite difficult. Now,
Hmm.
when you're younger, when you're in your 20s, even if we didn't have technology, um, I was the same. You're a little bit shy when talking to other people. And of course, the great thing about having a smartphone is that you don't really have to talk to people anymore. You can just send them a message. It's nice and safe. You just send a message
Wow.
because it's nice and easy. But you get out of practice of speaking to people, and then it becomes scary. If you speak to someone, well, you don't know what they're going to say. And you have to think on your feet, and it can be quite stressful. So it's very easy to take that easy option and just send a message. So you really ought to, and the advice I give my younger self is always try and talk to people. It
Mm,
enriches life. It enriches your skills. So if someone thinks that they can't live without their phone,
mm,
um, digital detox is an enabler. It gets you out of this technology sweet shop so you can do something else. So really, you've got to find something that you are really interested in, or find a person that you're really interested in listening to. So if you're out with a group of friends, um, and you're trying to have a conversation with your best friend,
mm,
and they keep getting their phone out, and just have to think about how does it make you feel that your best friend doesn't think you're important enough to be present?
mm,
That some cat video on TikTok is more important than what you might be saying. And so if you've
mm,
got a group of friends that all have this same difficulty, you could play a game. You could gamify it. And you could say, look, you know, you're my friends. Well, I want
mm,
to be with you. I want to chat with you, but we got this problem with our phones. Let's
mm,
say that we're not going to use our phones, but the first person who does pick up their phone has a small forfeit. It
mm,
doesn't have to be much, but they can have a small forfeit, and you make it a game and
mm,
in a way of retraining yourself. New habits can take up to 66 days, was one set of research by Professor Wendy Wood. So you can't expect to one day to do, oh, I'm going to do a digital detox and I'm going to do these things, and then all of a sudden it works tomorrow. It's the same thing as trying to train for a marathon. You can't run a marathon on day one because the
mm,
habits are going to take at least 2 months to kick in. Then you're going to have to train every day with your new habits before at some point in the future, all of a sudden, you don't have to think about them. They
mm,
just they just happen. And the thing is, you're going to fail. We all fail, but don't worry about it. Some training days go better than others, and don't beat yourself up.
mm,
Um, give your phone a name, a funny
mm,
name, and then say if you've gone on your phone and it's you've lost time because you started scrolling, you can say, look, Fred,
mm.
George, Julie, whatever the name is, you got the better of me that time, but next time I'm going to win.
Right. Okay, so yes, thank you so much, Colin. Honestly, I think this has been a really interesting conversation because it's something I could actually relate to when it comes to, technology and psychology, right? And what you said about my friend wanting to we playing a game, right? Whoever picks up their phone first. I think I'm gonna actually adopt that one. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just have this one question, right? So on the flip side, what gives you optimism about the future and how we live with, technology?
So I think with technology, we imagine for us to be totally engrossed in our technology, it has to provide novelty. It has to keep us stimulated.
Mm,
But we've had smartphones since 2007. That's an awful long time.
mm,
Um, so the technology is more or less the same. Okay, there's AI that does lots of thinking for us, and that can go
mm,
seriously wrong. if we stop thinking for ourselves. But at some point, I'm optimistic that we just get bored of some of the stuff that we're currently doing. Um, what gives me hope is in the in Europe,
Mm.
there's non-alcoholic beers, and they are incredibly popular.
Mm.
And the popularity is driven by young people. They probably see all of the older people think, oh, I don't want to end up like that. I'll have something that's a really nice tasting drink, but just doesn't have the alcohol. So there's a trend for non-alcoholic drinks, and I prefer them as well because it doesn't muck up your day. You can just get on with things. So I'm optimistic that we'll just get bored of some of these things.
Mm.
And when television started, there was worries that we'd spend all of our time watching television. Well, very few people watch television all day.
Mm.
So yeah, my optimism is we in order to be interested, we have to have novelty.
Mm.
And if it looks the same as it did last year and the year before and the year before, and at some point it may well do that, then we'll get bored and we'll do things for ourselves again. So yeah, I'm optimistic.
I'm optimistic too, right? Okay, and yes, finally, Curly, I want to talk to someone out there, right? Specifically young adults who are, trying to build their future in a world full of distractions, pressure, and constant digital noise, right? So what advice would you give them to stay focused, grounded, and intentional?
So AI will be doing more and more of the work for us. So
Hmm.
you've got to ask yourself the question, what is left for humans?
Hmm.
Well, to be honest, AI is incredibly complicated, but it lives in data centers and we feed it with the electricity and the air conditioning and everything else to make it work. It can't even make the tea by itself. So what we should do as what younger people should do is focus on the things that humans are incredibly good at.
Hmm.
And that means coming offline. That means working with other humans. That means experiencing this world that we know so little about, really. It means being creative. It means imagining things that don't exist yet, imagining the next technology. So I would say focus on all the things that make us human, because that's where the future of work particularly is. Because AI is going to do all the transactional stuff, all the boring stuff. So we need to train on doing all the clever human things, and that means interacting with this world around us and with the other people around us.
Hmm, right. Wow. Okay. Yes, Colin. This just reminded me of a conversation I had with a guest, right? I asked the question that in a world where, AI is, should I say, taking over, right? So what are the skills that we as human need to learn so that, we can stay relevant in today's world? And he said, communication, right? He
Yes,
said communication, yeah.
and communication isn't just the words that we use.
Mm.
It's being able to read the communication
Wow.
on someone else's face, how they're standing, to actually
Mm.
feel their emotions, to mirror their
Wow.
emotions. So it's the whole communication, not just the words and the sounds that we might hear.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So yes, that's that's just it. So yeah, thank you so much, Colin. I must say this has been a really beautiful conversation, right? It highlights something that most people feel but don't always, articulate. We are not just using technology anymore. It's shaping how we think, how we feel, and how we live, right? So I
Mm.
think I think people need to focus more on conversations like this. And yes, it brings me to the final segment of my podcast. It's called the rapid fire segment.
Oh, excellent.
All right. So, starting now, would you prefer focus or multitasking?
Always focus.
Hmm.
Multitasking creates stress, and what
Oh,
you do is less valuable.
okay. So, notifications on or off?
All mine are off, actually. Apart
All
from
right.
if someone rings me.
Okay. Noted. All right. So, morning routine or morning scroll?
Sorry, can you repeat that one?
All right. Morning routine or morning scroll?
Oh, morning routine, because I want to set up my own day. I don't want to be influenced by all the bad news and other things that are online.
Okay, all right. So, what is one habit to instantly improve digital well-being?
The one habit, I'm going to offer two. I'm going to be rebellious. The one habit is when you're with somebody,
Hmm,
try and be fully present and
hmm,
only listen to that person and speak to that person and don't look at your phone.
hmm,
And the sneaky extra one is I have a challenge which is called the Just One Thing Challenge.
hmm,
Before you go on your smartphone, decide why it is you're going on your smartphone. So I'm in England and it rains. So I'm going to look at the weather. So my one thing that I'm allowed to do is look at the weather. So I go on my smartphone and all I'm allowed to do is to look at the weather app and nothing else. And then I
hmm.
have to come away for 5 minutes. It's called the Just One Thing Challenge. It's incredibly hard to do.
Right. It's hard to do, but it's possible. That's
It's
what I'm saying.
possible and keep practicing.
Right. Keep practicing. Exactly. And yes, finally, right. So what do you think what is the most underrated skill for people in their 20s today?
Listening.
Hmm.
Um, because and if you if someone is talking, quite often, yes, we hear what they say, but we're not really listening because, there's we want to say something
Hmm.
or we want to go on, we want to look at our phones and we want to do something else. So being fully present and listening and then reacting to what they're saying.
Hmm.
Because it may be your view of what the conversation was going to be may be totally different. They may be asking for help. They may have some wonderful news. And that's the exciting thing about a conversation. You just don't know where you're going to end up, but you
Hmm.
have to listen.
Listening, exactly. Right. So yes, thank you so much, Colin. I must say this has been a really, really amazing conversation. And yeah, if people, want to explore your work and check out what you do, right? So where can they visit?
So I always laugh at this point because we all have to live and work online. And I'm going to say the website, which is the Digital Detox Coach.com.
Right.
There are free resources there. You can contact me. I'd love people to watch the TEDx talk because it has a lot of interesting things in it. And there's a free Substack which you can read
Mm,
because reading is a way of connecting to ourselves. Coming offline is a way of having time to think. So yeah, those are the ways of contacting me.
right. Okay. Yes, thank you so much, Colin. And yeah, this one will be to my listeners, right? Thank you all for listening to Conversations with Sekani. And if this episode sparked something in you, just as it did in me, make sure to share to someone who you think might need this. And also subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes. Yes, thank you once again, Colin, and do have a beautiful day ahead of you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
All right, take care.